NKIAC aims to enrich lives through art and culture and has been bringing people from diverse local communities together through a wide range of high-quality shared arts experiences, like tonight, for over a decade. We believe that art can transcend religion, politics, and race. It can empower individuals and can benefit the community. NKIAC usually holds a range of arts events and workshops around Milton Keynes. Art in the Park is our popular community festival, and the last one before the lockdown, before the pandemic, held at Willen Lake in glorious sunshine, attracted over 18,000 visitors. So NKIAC has made its mark. If you want to find out more about it, look at the website nkiac.org or NKIAC on Facebook and Instagram. The pandemic's caused problems, obviously, like for everybody. So NKIAC has turned to running online events like tonight's. And although it's lovely to meet in person in normal times, to take part in an art activity together and meet people, to listen to concerts together, maybe share food, meeting online can have some advantages. You can still be apart. You can catch up with events at a time that's convenient for you. You don't have to travel, and you can take part from the comfort of your own home. These are extraordinary times, affecting people of different ages and circumstances quite differently. The pandemic has meant births and deaths without the comfort of a loved one to hold your hand, babies never seeing other babies in their whole lives, children missing out on friendships, carefree play and education, young people deprived of some of the freedoms that are necessary as a part of growing up. And that's not even to mention the economic hardships, damage to businesses, job worries, mental health problems, and of course a staggering toll of ill health and death. We've all had to adapt our lives in some way, some people massively so, which brings us to our theme of healing and renewal. Poetry lets us be in the moment and express our feelings, or someone else can express them for you, find the words to what's been going on for you. And this can help us heal and move on from difficult times. As we are hopefully now on a solid path to coming out of this pandemic, we can look back, make sense of what has happened, and start to heal and adapt to a new normal. So it's also a time of renewal, with new perspectives of what we most value and a greater appreciation of all the people we really depend on and might have taken for granted. We've got some great speakers tonight, all reading their own writing. Two of our speakers have sent videos because they can't be with us in person. I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone, and I'll introduce them in turn. But yesterday I was talking to Anwar, and I foolishly said I might read a poem, meaning to find something that spoke to me about the subject, but I couldn't find the book because my room was in such a mess. I was looking, the book I was looking for, but it got me thinking and jotting down some thoughts. So here's what I wrote. It's called Roller Coaster 2021. Some personal snapshots of an extraordinary time. I'm shocked. Terrifying scenes from China. So much suffering. Now Italy too, and friends in danger. When will it be us? All plans on hold. Hopefully we'll get through this soon. I'm sewing. I'm researching masks, making masks, and more masks. A letter from Matt Hancock, and it's hard to get my head around being labelled vulnerable. Now I'm shielding, and I'm scared. I'm resigned. We're in this for the long haul now. I'm resigned that it'll be many months before I could hug my loved ones. I'm sad. So many people terribly ill. So many people dying. News of a friend rushed off in an ambulance, extremely ill, her husband unable to see her and terrified that he'll lose her. I'm bored with the routine of the grocery order, no visitors to the house, weekdays and weekends blur into one. I'm weary. This has been so long. I don't know what day or month it is. I just want to hop on a train to London, to anywhere, see friends, hug them, do something spontaneous, party, go somewhere new. But there's a pandemic and I'm shielded. And I'm grateful in so many ways, more grateful than I have ever been. Grateful that I don't have to choose between health and financial survival. Grateful that I have a home and a garden, that I'm not alone. Grateful for the many green spaces near me. Grateful for the clear skies and sound of the birds when there are so few cars and planes. Grateful for the joy and comfort of nature. I'm very grateful to the countless unsung everyday COVID heroes. I'm grateful to the many people who keep me safe, who deliver my post, parcels, groceries, keep the power supply going, maintain Zoom. I'm grateful to all the health and care workers who turn up and look after other people when they know they're in danger themselves, who offer kindness and caring. I'm grateful to the volunteers who make our community a better place. I'm hopeful. Scientists are working long hours to develop vaccines which can unlock this terrible situation, free us from this prison. I'm hopeful that we'll all heal and learn from this pandemic and not forget. I'm hopeful that eventually the world will be better. I'm relieved. We've got an appointment for our jabs. I'm chatting to a friendly volunteer steward in a cold, wet car park, waiting for my first jab. He has been here for 4 hours already, comes day after day. So many kind and helpful people make the vast vaccination machine work. I'm lucky. I know I'm very lucky. Over 400 days since first shielding, and I'm very well. Thank you. Ooh, right. Okay. Weird. Right. Now I'm going to introduce you to, I'm delighted to introduce you to Philip Ball, who knows all about COVID. He is a lead nurse in palliative and end-of-life care, and also a Freedom to Speak Up guardian. So that's somebody who's an independent support and gives advice to staff who want to raise their concerns. And Philip's been writing poetry since he was a teenager and recently found it really helpful to him in dealing with the situation and also using it at work. So Philip, if you'd like to say something else about yourself and then launch into your poetry for today.
Thank you, Hilly. Thank you, Hilly. Thank you for your poem, and being scared is something that's a theme for me. I'm particularly pleased to be here amongst others. I note Iram, who's speaking later, talks about the words dancing on the page, and they often do that for me in the early hours of the morning. And I know Bushra, who's reading later, mentions writing in the early hours, so I have to keep pen and paper handy by the bedside. I think these poems just help reflect. There's a couple about recent times and one older one that I'll come to at the end of my selection. The first poem I wrote quite literally at the end of 2020 and called it Reflections of 2020. I wanted to do something about the year and decided that I'd do it month by month. And it came to me in the middle of the night that it would be a good idea to have the 12 months listed, and each side of each month's name would be an equal amount of letters and spaces. So the shape has the poem has a symmetry visually. Reflections of 2020. Time of anticipation of post-winter renewal, Jan. Aware something in China, news a little vague. A few warm sunlit days in Gibraltar, Feb. Sounds like a virus is coming our way. The opportunity to be in Pembrokeshire, March. Lockdown, toilet roll supply in Wales. One working from home, April. One friend ill in ITU. Blossom in trees and vulnerable deliveries, May. ITU friend dies, now I'm angry and scared. Being clapped, thanks, June. One of the good guys. Summer days by the sea, July. Maybe lockdown helped. A birthday amongst concern, August. Supporting colleagues' work. Finding ways to vary the routine, September. Tightening and tears and tantrums. The search for a rescue cat starts, October. A fresh wave brings saltwater tears. What about Christmas, November? Creative work planning. Christmas came, went, December. Did our best to please. And an encore for 2021. The friend who died in ITU was called Barry, and he was someone I'd known in secondary school. And it's nearly a year since he died. And I love that Reflections poem because I was able to register him. My second poem is called A Little Light and involves an event for other school friends of mine. A little light. Facing hurt and aching absence, waiting for news of bigger things, scale and depth of lost proportion, plunging us into infinitive grief. At these times when little is so key, our lives revolve around the smallest of occurrences. In other news, there are signs, glimpses that bigger things will burst out, blinding with temporary brightness. Beyond haircuts, there's births and new beginnings, such wondrous new life and light, breath lusty and untrammeled, and promise fulfilled, faces of joy and anticipation spread beyond that life-giving hope. That's for Martin and Tracy, who became grandparents just a week or two ago. My last poem is called Being Scarred, and I wrote it about 6 years ago about our youngest son, who at that time was turning 21. But as just a few days old, he was involved in a life-threatening accident and scalding, and subsequently came to live with us, and we adopted him. It's called Being Scarred. Just last evening, with sun-sinking beers, sitting on Grandma's sofa, there's chatter all around. And what was it then that memorised me to being by your bedside? All wrinkled sheets and crimson dressings, deliberately bald at your tender age, with farts and piss pots we passed the days. Such hard grafting by what a team that gave us you to live. Without showing your well-marbled frame gives notice of your trauma. In coming of age, at the place beyond your teens, you've grown used to these stains upon your torso. These marks remain, they go unchallenged as yet by commitment serious, yet you face the world, striding out with no delay. There, that's my 3 poems around health and restoration. and recovery. Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute. As in 101 of how to be on Zoom. Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. Very thought-provoking, and again, that sort of scared, as you said, and following scared, sometime following scared, hope.
Yeah, I think it kind of feels more positive, and just seeing the joy in photographs of my friends with their little grandson has of itself been quite an antidote to the darkness.
Yeah, and I guess professionally, because you've dealt with people preparing to die for a long time, and with the staff who are supporting the staff and so on, that must be something you've given a lot of thought to. How do you find life at the end of this?
Yeah, I think certainly at the moment with my colleagues, with family and friends in India, we're trying to be very helpful and as supportive as we can to those who are here and working and facing not seeing their loved ones again because they're dying. That just when kind of things were beginning to feel a little more like we can move on and let's use the best of what we've done in the last year in terms of being fleet of foot in terms of decision making and trying to help people as best we can at the hospital. You know, there's a whole set of colleagues who are facing a really traumatic time at present, and so we're having to help them with that. And I think we're going to have to be prepared to listen to stories around the pandemic for some time to come, you know, whether that's people want to tell us next week or in a few years' time. You know, we're all going to find that a little bit different, I think.
Yeah, the people we all depend on, and it's who cares for the carers. And you said something about actually using poetry at work, or what is it that you've been trying?
Well, I think we just at a kind of big, you know, the meeting of all the senior nurses, you know, I was asked to share what our team have been through in terms of representation, but have all during this thought it important really that we can record our stories in some way. Now, some people may choose to paint or draw or take up a new hobby. For me, it was around using words, and just felt that I wanted to get the message across to my matron colleagues and the senior nurses that we should be prepared to hear people's stories. And so a way of doing that was to share my own through sharing the poetry. So, for instance, my first poem. And it probably works a bit better if you can actually see it on the screen. I should have maybe done that. And the feedback I got from that was so positive, although I don't think people were expecting me to do that. And people stopped in the corridor after us and said, you know, thank you for saying that. We'd kind of be thinking that and wondering what was going on ourselves. And I think it's just a way of helping unlock the conversation, start the conversation for people if they're not feeling great or they have concerns, then that's one way of doing it. And that's helped me say to senior management, you know, let's look at poetry and maybe other aspects of art in general that we can use to allow people to express how they are and what they've been through.
What an absolutely wonderful example of how culture and the arts can bring people together, heal people, help people, which is also very much about how we like to think in MKIOC.
Yeah, yeah.
Any
Good.
tips for wannabe poets?
I think we, if you ask me, I would say sometimes I'm someone who struggles with confidence, and you just write things down and find a critical friend. It might be someone you're very close to, it might not be, but just be prepared to show them your work and just ask for advice. And I think too, I write things down and be prepared to revisit them. Sometimes they'll take 2 or 3 iterations for me to feel happy with them, or I'll play around with the order of some of the paragraphs or lines. A Little Light, I think the third kind of stanza really, or paragraph, was originally the first. So you know, just give it a go. Just write it down, and if writing things down in however shape or form you do it helps the expression, then that in itself is of value, I think. You know, if it's the middle of the night and you can't sleep and things are buzzing around your head, write them down. That's a tip from me. Yeah.
Thanks very, very much, Philip. Enjoy your fish and chips later.
Okay.
And
thank you. I look forward to hearing the others.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, now we've actually we're joined by Amila Begum, and she's a radio presenter of the Popular Women's Hour with Amila on Unity FM 93.5 from Birmingham. She's a passionate and dedicated humanitarian and philanthropist, where she personally and professionally works on a number of global and UK-based projects to help improve the lives of others. She's co-author of a #1 bestseller, sharing her journey with endometriosis and how she embraced her disease to transform her outlook in life and the lives of many other women affected by this disease. So welcome. Do you pronounce it Amila?
That's correct, Hilly. Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. I wasn't expecting that introduction, and because I sent Adele something even more like so brief, but I think she got hold of an introduction that was shared with Anwar a few weeks ago. So thank you for that. Thank you for having me here. I know that I've got a time restriction, so just going to set a little bit of a backdrop to my poetry. So for about 2 decades of my life, I suffered with a disease, endometriosis, which affects 1.5 million women here in the UK. It's a gynecological related disease. It takes on average 7 to 10 years for a diagnosis, and that's average. I took 20 years, and it's often misdiagnosed. It's an invisible disease, so the pain and the sufferings are not particularly seen on the outside. So you get a lot of questions around, well, what's wrong with you? You seem perfectly fine. And because of the delays it takes, you're often questioned, well, hold on, is it all in your head? Because your doctors don't seem to think there's anything wrong with you. I had one surgery where it was missed, and then I had another consultant who then found the endometriosis. So based on that, I turned to poetry, and it was August 2018. It was kind of like rediscovering the poet inside of me. As a young girl, I used to write poetry quite a fair bit. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and this is my first poem that I wrote that I'm going to share. It damaged a lot of relationships in my life, particularly with friends and family around me who didn't understand the disease. And so this was my first poem that I wrote on my journey with endometriosis. So I'm just going to go and bring it up here. So it's called The Pain is Real, the Pain is Mine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. You see me thriving, and so you think I'm fine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. You see me smiling, and so you think I'm fine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. You don't see the struggles of my everyday climb, and so you think I'm fine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. You don't see my tears hidden by the dark nights, forcing me to watch the skies till sunrise, and so you think I'm fine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. How I wish you would reach out and hold me tight and tell me that it will all be fine. The pain is real, the pain is mine. Thank you for listening. So that's my first poem. That was in 2018. June 2019, I went on to have a hysterectomy. And then in October 2019, I was experiencing symptoms of surgical menopause. And menopause, it's another thing to talk about altogether. When you have surgical menopause, the challenges are that much more greater, because suddenly you wake up one day without no perimenopausal trial period. Boom, you're just hit with menopause, and your body has to learn, you have to learn to deal with it. And this is when I would say my mental health was at its worst.
What you told me was how lonely it can be to have a hidden thing that's affecting your life so terribly, and you really have woken us up to that. And I imagine that other women experiencing that would recognise hugely what you said. So thank you very much indeed. And thank you for joining us. And
thank you. I'm going to take leave now because I've just got some work that I need to finish off. And thank you, everybody, and good luck to everybody else who's going to be sharing their program. I've still got you on in the background listening, but I'll be going on video off and getting on with some work as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. And you can watch us later anyway.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, take care all. Bye.
Right. Well, now we've got a video. We've got our contributor Amy Knight, who is an award-winning creative writer and a prolific poet, songwriter, author, wordsmith. I shall let the videos speak for themselves.
Good evening. My name is Amy Knight. Thank you for inviting me to contribute this evening. I'm sorry I can't be there in person to read my poetry, but I'm very grateful to be able to share this video with you. On the subject of healing and renewal, I would like to share a poem about bath time and a poem about bedtime, because my prescription for pretty much everything is a hot bath and a good night's sleep. So I'm going to start with my poem called Lit from Within. They dance before me, perfect worlds of every size, lit from within, all holding green and purple stars to light my eyes and decorate my skin. When I breathe, they move, a swaying crowd, they're passing my exhale among them, gently sharing it around until we settle into not quite stillness. As I sink deeper down, they knit together, covering me from every side. They take their place so lovingly across the shape I make and dance there while I hide. Lit from within is where I've been, and I'm trying to get back there while you're waiting, wishing for my laugh. With 1,000 bubbles dancing to my breath, I hide here in the bath. And I'm now going to read The Magic Pillow. This is a poem I wrote last year for the children of lockdown who have wild and beautiful dreams and some sleep issues, some regression, some sibling attachment, some separation anxiety caused by COVID-19 isolation and re-entry. But I think this poem is for grown-ups as well. Into the magic pillow, bury your face and breathe out your thoughts and dreams. Then lay your head like a king or a queen on this bed where 1,000 stories have been. Read now the magic pillow, for the soft depths of its cloud-like form reveal old pages, thumbed and worn, of every book we've read since you were born. Listen now to the magic pillow as it drums in your ears, my beating heart. Let the frequency absorb your tears and fill the space between us while we sleep apart. Whisper now to the magic pillow your precious secrets and your darkest fears. All your knowing and growing, the pillow hears and paints a watercolour of your dreams, so that when you wake, you can show them to me. Tomorrow, I can't wait to see. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed those. Have a wonderful evening.
Well, if you see this, Amy, thank you very much for that. And if ever I have problems sleeping, I shall start to think about my pillow, not as an ordinary one, but as a magic pillow. Right, let's move on to our next speaker. And it's welcome to Iram Amin, who's been writing poetry from a very young age. This is her return visit to MKIAC, both in a live event and online. So I'll let Iram introduce herself, and over to you, Iram, and your introduction and your poetry.
Hello, thank you for having me. Yeah, so I have been writing poetry from a young age, but I have been having breaks in between as well. I started writing when I lost my dad. I was 12, so thoughts would just come to me, and I'd always have my notebook and my pen, and I'd just jot down my thoughts and then eventually turn them into poems. And so I've got two pieces today, and the first one is about my dad, and it gets a little bit dark. I don't want to use the word dark, but it's full of emotion. But it's got a nice ending, so I'll start with that one and then I'll read my second one after. So this is called The Other Side of Loss. You left a hole, a void, a darkness. Sorry, an absence of light, an absence of you, an absence that screams at me every day and every night. Remember, the 2nd of December, when I saw beyond the loss and my soul danced to the broken beats of my beaten heart. The clock strikes 12. 12. I was only 12. I remember the hot flushes as his body turned to ice. I remember the rhythm of my heart as his stopped beating. Don't die, don't die. I remember the wetness in my eyes as his closed forever. The clock strikes 12. In January, Mum started to put his things away. February, we were supposed to go back to school and play. March was their wedding anniversary, and it was killing her to go on and on. April came with broken hopes and shattered dreams. We were just expected to move on and on. May, if I may. We were still in limbo, still lingering. I started listening less at school and doodling more. Started sleeping less at night, but dreaming more. June was ours, mine and his. Happy birthday to us. June fed my fire, making it impossible for me to sleep at night. I thought I would choke from the smoke, but I guess that was just the cigarettes. Fast forward to now, where his voice is starting to fade and his face is a distant memory. But I've welcomed new love and I've accepted new peace. I've struggled to balance my cup of happiness. And now, even though I'm in my 20s, I'll always remember that a cup half empty is also a cup half full. And as I've traveled through this journey of darkness and light, as I've spent most of my life putting up a fight, I finally listened to the voices that offered me help, because in reality, I admit, I had to lose myself in order to find myself. Thank you. And my second one is a very short one. And on the topic of renewal, this is how I see it and my vision of it. The truth is, you are scared, afraid of what has happened and afraid of what may happen. You feel like something is missing. Well, that's because it is. Whenever your heart broke, you lost a piece. Whenever you cried, you lost a piece of yourself. And now you think you are imperfect. You must realize that you cannot become new again, because this is you now. Your broken pieces are you, your faults, your weaknesses, your insecurities. It's you. So gather all your pieces and present them as yourself. Take pride in your flaws and make your existence known, because your beauty shines in ways you cannot imagine. You are a work of art, and art, my dear, is confident. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Iram. That was both really, really powerful, and I think a theme's coming through in all of these poems about very, very personal issues, very profoundly expressed feelings that actually speak to others as well. So they were wonderful. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
What is it? Anything happening for you at the moment in terms of writing poetry? I know a lot of artists have found the whole thing about lockdown and the pandemic has frozen. So, you know, some people have been incredibly creative, others just feel frozen by it.
I actually have just come out of a massive writer's block. So lockdown for me, I didn't do a lot of writing. I'm just finishing my degree, and then with a full-time job, I just didn't have any space to squeeze any sort of writing in. But now that my degree is finishing and I've got a lot of extra time, I'm hoping to publish my already written poems and short stories soon. So I'm back onto my writing very recently. So I've had about a year-ish off writing. But yeah, it's been quite difficult actually, because every time I wanted to sit down and write something, this massive writer's block would come, and that's it. You know, I'd put my pen and pencil down and then just walk away from it, hoping to come back. But it was very difficult to do so, because when your mind's, you know, distracted with different things, may it be a job or just general home life, it's so difficult to get your thoughts onto a piece of paper. But yeah, I mean, now it's a good time for me to write again, so hopefully you will be hearing a lot more from me.
That's great. Well, with a little bit more headspace and your book
Absolutely.
soon, all the best with that, and thank you very much for joining
me
tonight. Thanks. Can we move on now to another video? And this is a video by Amanda Pink with two poems. She's a hospital chaplain, and I must say I've seen both videos, and with the first one I needed tissues. You know, it was as a hospital chaplain, she sees some very, very sad things. So let's see Amanda.
Hello, my name is Amanda Pink, and I am a chaplain at Milton Keynes University Hospital. I'm going to read you two poems. The first is a very short one. It's just a snapshot, but it is, for me, probably the most poignant image that seems so symbolic of so many of the things that have been tragic about the pandemic. It came out of my experience of giving some end-of-life care to someone on ICU whose ventilator was being switched off after it was decided that there was no hope of recovery, and hearing a bit about the story of her husband, who was older than her and surviving her, and witnessing his grief. It's called Bubble. She was fine. It was you at risk. But somehow here you are, and she has gone. And trapped inside a plastic hood, your anguish drips, unwiped, from your nose, out of the reach of even your very own hands. And my second poem is called Prayers in a COVID Winter. Roll on spring, we say. I say. Roll on lockdown liberation and the nation's vaccination, actual corporeal congregation, even taking vacation. And in our desperation, end this, God, we pray. Get us back to normal, our petitionary oblation. Oh, how we need your grace for our prayers, as well as our hearts and hospitals and homes. May they hold more truth and wisdom and life than simple grass's greener tropes. Yes, Lord, we long for relief, for the ebbing of this tide of grief, and it's in fervent, hopeful belief that we seek the green blade rising. Yet as we do, let us hear your asserting, your regreening will be more than reverting, for true nourishing hope draws up the hurting, and it's wholly metabolizing.
Well, Amanda, if you see this, thank you. I was ready with the tissues this time for that first poem. It's so very touching. But let's move on to Bushra Gulpraz. She's nodding. Great. Who again is returning to one of our sessions, so it's lovely to see her. And she's published poetry. She's published an anthology entitled Holy Jewels, with an emphasis on human rights and social justice from an Islamic perspective, including mention of the three Abrahamic faiths, and is now working on her second book. And you can see her work at therosepoet.com. So I'll open the floor to Bushra to say a little bit about yourself if you'd like to, and then read us your poem, which I believe is a long one written specially for this event.
Yeah, thank you, Hilly. Thank you. I'm not going to say too much about myself. I'd rather go straight into the poems, except to say that I'm a social activist. I was involved in student union activities at university. I studied psychology just like yourself. And that's kind of it about me. I'll just go straight into the poem. It's called The New Normal, to be or not to be. So here we are gathered together with one major thing in common. This lockdown designed to tether. Yet rebels refuse to comply, instead basking in the sun. A different life affecting mental health. The situation now about much more than chasing wealth. Instead, the claim that a new healing is taking place, whilst governments demand that we should cover our face. So what has changed? What is new? Families together at home, and shopping means lining up in a ginormous queue. But even this has its positive meaning. Patience, which seemed insurmountable, now the general leaning. Zoom meetings from home galore, little children interrupting, touching our heart's core. Even such events can be seen as healing, but for me, the ultimate renewal is in kneeling before the one who created all. We know we must persist and heed God's call. Love one another. That's what Prophet Jesus taught. And so the majority, including the amazing NHS staff, have fought against this deadly virus, which seems to have no end. And sadly for some, it means being driven round the bend. Nobody knows how long this lockdown will last. For the Muslims, it's Ramadan and they continue to fast. Another source of healing, it is in fact. For many, a person has lost their jobs because of being sacked. So collectively, our nation moves to love those less fortunate, being blessed by a holy dove. For me, it's initiatives like the NHS Royal Voluntary Services, which are so kind, that gives me hope and reassurance and calms my mind. Yes, there I've said it. We all in some way have faced turmoil, yet we continue to obey the powers that be, for in general, we are loyal. So how do initiatives like regular exercise help us heal? It's actually the realization of how we must really feel. Losing freedom, our biggest blessing, can confuse, for by rights we are sociable, and COVID has come to abuse. Still, resilience and hope cause us to stand tall. Even in the midst of such chaotic events, there is still some semblance of normality, in my humble opinion, because of God's call. My healing, my renewal, my tentative steps to a new life are very much at odds with this viral strife. So rhyme in heart and pen in hand, I know for sure my faith does not rest on sand. For me, the key is faithful prayer against the darkness and its lair. I trust in God, who really cares, who comforts us when we're in tears. Renewal can mean many things, especially when my heart joyfully sings. Praises to Allah, God Elohim, who is the King of Kings. For many, it's no longer about material things. A new dawn, a new era, a new lifestyle, where thoughts become spoken words, no longer stagnant in a closed file. Yes, I won't lie, there is a constant threat of fear of coronavirus and its variant share, but we are strong in our global efforts to fight. For as I've learned, in the darkness, there is still light. So pen to paper heals both heart and mind. This poetry log is an amazing find. The rhymes keep coming, the confidence strong. It's truly a blessing to sing this song. So normal or not, one thing's for sure, and that's I'm certainly not a bot. Aha, now I'm on to conspiracy theories and so-called truth, where some people are aligned to the Matrix phone booth. You know, the one where Neo's empowering and enlightening people? The awakening is real for those who are not sheeple. And so I end with holy prayers again. There are always, always a few good men. Thank you for listening.
And thank you for speaking. And thank you for such beautiful poetry in there. The line I'm going to take away with me is, this poetry lark is an amazing find. I think we should have that as a tagline on NKIC spoken word events. In terms of the effect of lockdown on you and your writing, Bushra, what have you noticed?
I think the main thing is, with regards to poetry, I've always been writing since I discovered that I could. But now, in terms of coping better, I just put pen to paper and I'm like, okay, I'm going to write what my feelings are. Like you mentioned in your poem, I've also been shielding because I'm actually quite sick, so it's, for me, it's a means of coping with the illnesses and everything. But also, I think something that's really touched my heart is how everyone's rallied together. And that's just, you know, in our street when the clapping and everything was going on, and we had little children, you know, with their pots and pans, and some of us didn't even know each other. And now, because of lockdown, we were all, you know, waving at each other and appreciating what the NHS is doing for everyone, which is why I thought it was important to mention it in the poem. But yeah, that I think I'm even more in touch with my feelings about so many issues than I was prior to this sad situation. But then, you know, we've always got hope. So yeah.
That's lovely, and very much touching on the theme of renewal. I think we're about to run out of time. It seems amazing how quickly this evening has gone, and what a lot of really personal, high quality words were out there. So I hope people online have enjoyed sharing this evening with us, and people who watch later. So it just leaves for me to thank all our speakers. Thank you so much, and thank you for the people who sent in the videos. I want to thank Omar for his support as technical bod. I want to thank Adele, who's behind the scenes making these things happen, and Anwar for his tireless and enthusiastic keeping MKAIC going under difficult times. And part of our renewal is discovering that we can do things digitally, and you know, maybe we can take all this further with us in the future. So here's to lots of renewal and a much better future.
Amen.
Good night, everybody.